welcome to Uncorked, the Welsh Wine Podcast, where we basically talk about anything to do with the Welsh wine industry.
All while drinking a bottle of Welsh wine.
So today we're looking at all things grapes, which we're going to try and make this accessible and interesting and maybe a bit of fun.
Hopefully.
One of the things that my friends say to me when we talk about wine, they know I'm a bit mad about wine, and they think, oh, grapes, it's a bit pretentious, isn't it? It's red or white, isn't it?
Or pink.
Or pink. Yeah, pink
grapes.
too. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
true.
Yeah.
Pink grapes.
Or fizzy.
Or fizzy.
Or orange.
Or orange.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Point taken.
Already derailing the conversation.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So we're gonna have a chat today about how important are they? Like, how important is it? Do the different types of grapes make the wine taste radically different? Or and we're gonna obviously put a Welsh slant on that and look at what we grow and drink in Wales.
Yep.
Grapes then, as I said, can be quite pretentious. It can sound it. You're talking about your Sauvignon Blancs and your Chardonnays and your Pinot Noir. Does it really make that much of a difference? I mean, I know I tend to look for a certain type of wine when I like a Pinot Noir, so if I see that in the supermarket, I'll grab that. But is it really that different? Is a Malbec and a Pinot Noir, well, they're both red wines, are they wildly different? Does it make much of a difference?
It makes so much of a difference, and this is something I get quite a lot in the shop actually when people come in, because they're like, I'm looking for a red wine, and I go, okay, so what do you tend to drink?
I guess that's sort of like, do you want a German Shepherd or do you want a Schnauzer?
It's like, what dog do you want?
Yeah.
But it genuinely makes a huge difference. So, for example, we've got so many different grape varieties in the world. Syrah, just as one example, and then you've also got Shiraz, which is the same grape variety but just grows in a different region. So it's exactly the same grape, but it's actually called something different just because it performs differently. So the difference between a Pinot Noir, a Cabernet Sauvignon, and a Syrah or a Shiraz are going to be so drastic.
Right.
It's going to completely change the profile, the fruits that you get. Genuinely, like it's wild. And then on top of that, you've got, like I said, a Syrah and a Shiraz, and depending on where it grows, that could perform differently as well. So the grapes are actually really, really important in shaping the wine and the kind of wine that you like. So more often than not, people come into the shop and they'll say, I ask them, what supermarket wine do you buy?
Right.
And then I will Google the grape varieties and where it's from and try and find something that is similar.
So I guess a tip then for people who come into your shop then is kind of try and find a grape that you like, and okay, say you decide you land on a bottle of Malbec and you enjoyed it, you can then go from there and sort of try other things similar. Or
I think my general tip is, if you find a wine that you like, figure out where it's from and try and find what grape it's from. Because a Malbec in Argentina, for example, is going to be completely different to a Malbec in France. So if you can find out those two things, that gives you so much ammo, and it gives you so much information as to what you actually like about your wine. And they're tools, and so you can go to any sommelier, go to any restaurant. And I mean this. I know people get really embarrassed, and I have so many people coming in and going, I don't know anything about wine. I'm like, well, you're in the right place. Please don't be embarrassed. That's my job. My job is to try and make you feel comfortable and to try and find you the best wine. So find those two things out and use it as often as you can in a supermarket, in a restaurant, in a wine shop, or wherever.
Because one thing I really like is when you go into restaurants, and it tends to be in restaurants, and some of them make their wine list accessible by listing very specific tasting notes. And because I mean, I like wine, but I don't know the first thing about it. Like I'm the dumbest at this table when it comes to wine.
Stop it.
Well, no, I don't. I haven't studied it formally. No, it's fine. I'll take it. It's fine. We all have our strengths. No, it's true though. But there's certain, like, just thinking in Cardiff, there's Nighthawks, and they have, it's quite clever the way they describe their wines, and it's really, really accurate. So you may not know what a Viognier tastes like, but it doesn't matter because they spell it out underneath. So I know just from going to places like there and other places with really descriptive wine menus that I like something that's dark fruits, that's a bit tobacco-y, but not smoky. Like I've learned the language from just, it's like that tends to be the wine that I like. And so it's also like figuring out the language of what it is that you like in a wine, because everyone's tastes are different, and there tends to be those notes that do come through, as pretentious as it sounds.
And then the other thing I'd say then is if you like a particular grape, so in relation to Welsh wine then, we've already said people don't kind of know what the grapes are. They've never heard of them. They're quite sort of new, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's why last episode we talked about Solaris being very much like Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
So I guess it's going to be really helpful for us in future episodes to try and compare kind of unknown Welsh grapes to ones perhaps we do know more often in supermarkets.
Yeah, ideally that's kind of the aim, to try and make these grapes that people don't know much about more accessible, and try and give them descriptors and confidence, give people confidence to buy them and give them a go. Because I do understand that a lot of these Welsh wines are going to be spennier, as Angie likes to say every now and again.
I like saying spenny.
You do say spenny, but they are going to be more expensive than what you get in a supermarket. So it's giving you the confidence to go, do you know what? I think I actually know what this is going to taste like, so I'm going to buy that bottle.
Sara, I'm confused from the outset with wine sometimes, in that, you know, sometimes a bottle will say Malbec or Sauvignon Blanc or things like that, which you know what they are, and that's grapes, right? And then sometimes you see a bottle that's like Côte de Rhône or Rioja or things like that, which aren't grapes, but they're parts of their regions of France and Spain.
Yeah.
So why can you just help us out then?
So any label that has something like Cabernet Sauvignon, Sauvignon Blanc, or whatever, like you just said, they are the grape varieties. And anytime you get a bottle with a label that doesn't have the grape variety itself, it just has the region. So, for example, Châteauneuf-du-Pape, they are protected regions. And so they have these rules and regulations within that region that basically, if you know about the rules and regulations, then you will know about the grape varieties, right? So it's kind of like you need some insider knowledge to know what you're drinking. So like Burgundy, for example, like the best Burgundies, and people are like, ooh, I love this kind of, or like my uncle is so into Burgundy wines. It's like, and he's been there, like he spends so much time in Burgundy. And it's Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is the red grape variety that grows in Burgundy, and Chardonnay is the white grape.
Right.
And is it only those, or is it a blend? Because, like, am I right in thinking things like Côte de Rhône and Châteauneuf-du-Pape, those are blends often, as opposed to like a single variety or varietal or whatever we're supposed to be saying. But in Burgundy, it's just Pinot Noir.
Yeah, in Burgundy, it's just one, and that's part of the rule of that region. So different regions will have different rules. So exactly like you were just saying in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, I'm pretty sure you can have like 19 different grape varieties as part of the blend of the Châteauneuf-du-Pape. So when someone says I really like it, I'm like, mate, I don't know how to help you in my shop, because you could like any one of these 19 grapes.
Because I really like a Châteauneuf-du-Pape, but I also like a Côte de Rhône, and they're like similar region.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
they're both in the Rhône.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But I'm one of those people where it's like, oh, I really like a Châteauneuf-du-Pape, but if don't want to spend that much money, I'll get a Côte de Rhône, because they're not as expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely like a variation there, because some Côte de Rhône are quite light, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's not what I thought I was signing up for.
So if I read it rightly, then France and Spain, basically, there are regions there where they have the rules and regulations, so you know what kind of wine it's going to be. So if it's like a Rioja from Spain, you sort of know, and it's the grapes that they use in that region,
and Italy as well.
And Italy, yeah. Or you can go and you can buy something from New Zealand, and it'll just say Sauvignon Blanc, and you know what the grape is, and you know what it is.
Yeah, most New World, it's called New World.
No World, okay.
Yeah.
Please do explain New World. Without singing.
Anything, sorry.
Do we have to go all the way back to colonialism? Because I mean, I could. No, I won't. It's fine. No. I won't bring it down.
We've already done the history episode. Anything outside of Europe is considered New World.
Right. So hopefully then that explains it a bit easier then, in terms of sometimes it says the region and sometimes it says the grape.
So in Wales, do we have regions, or are we still like Wild West territory where it's just grapes?
In England, for example, there are some areas that have these slight rules and regulations. So if you have quality English sparkling, for example, on the label, it will have its own connotation. So you'll have to grow certain grapes will have to go into that blend, for example. It has to be made in a certain method. In Wales, we do have like a quality, so there something quite similar. But generally speaking, what you see on the label is the grape variety as opposed to, this protected region.
So should be, in theory, a bit more straightforward. Yep. But we are going to come to Welsh grapes, which a lot of people probably haven't heard of, which doesn't help make it easier. But that's why we're here, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's why we're here, to try and demystify this
making it
very
accessible,
confusing wine world and making
explaining
it accessible.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do we grow in Wales then, Sarah?
We have, the 5 most popular grape varieties in Wales. Funnily enough, the first one is Pinot Noir, Seyval Blanc, Chardonnay, Solaris, and Rondo, which, we talked about Solaris in the last episode.
Rondo like a type of music? It is. That's right.
No, so we've got quite a lot of, they're called hybrid varieties.
Okay.
So we talked about Bacchus in the first episode. We've talked about Solaris. We've got varieties like Ortega, Orion, Regent, and they're all hybrid varieties which are commonly known as Pee-wee grapes.
Pee-wee? Like Pee-wee Herman?
Sarah, please God, tell us what a Pee-wee grape is. It's not Pee-wee Herman.
No, it's really not. So Pee-wee, it's short for the German word. Shall I try and pronounce it?
Go for it.
Okay. Pilswiderstandfähige. Do you know? I'm done. It's it basically it just means it's a fungus resistant variety. So these hybrid varieties are grapes that have basically been bred. So they're crossed with another species to produce a new variety that has higher resistance to fungal diseases. Yummy. Which are common in cooler climates, like in Wales. We've got quite a cool, wet climate, so you do need grape varieties that are resistant to these things. And so, that's why we plant a lot of hybrid varieties.
Bigger, stronger, faster varieties.
Well, if you imagine like crossbreeding dogs, it's exactly the same thing. You take a dog. Step one, take a dog.
I'm gonna just maybe think you need at least 2.
Hey, I've not reached step 2. Step 2, take another dog.
Make sure they're compatible.
But the whole point is that you breed them so that you either you breed a desired quality or you get rid of an undesired quality. And it's exactly the same with grapes. You can now grow like Solaris we were talking about in the last episode. It's a hardy variety. I know we really leaned heavily into hardy, so I'm not going to go into it anymore. But the whole point is that it grows very, very well in our climate. And that's what Pee-wee grapes are.
In this episode, then, we're drinking a Ravanc from the Dell Vineyard.
Yep.
Which has a cool bottle.
Yeah,
a very cool bottle.
Lovely label.
And we're going to hear a bit more from Lucy from the Dell in a bit.
Mm-hmm. So is this is a white wine?
Yep.
That's my contribution.
Yes. It is white in colour.
So I take it because we're drinking this today. This is made from hybrid varieties.
Yeah, German hybrids. Actually.
Hybrids.
Yeah. I'm going to let Lucy pronounce them later because I've already butchered this language once on this podcast, so I'm not going to do it again. But yeah, it's a really cool aromatic white wine, and I'm really excited for you to try it.
Me too. Do you two know what Ravanc or Avanc actually is?
It's a beaver in Welsh,
Avanc
isn't it?
means beaver, yeah.
Yes, but also no. Or it's more of a yes and.
Okay.
So Avanc is 100% the Welsh word for beaver, and there were actual beavers, like the little rodent animals that are of my country as well. There were beavers here until hundreds of years ago, and they, just because they've got really nice waterproof skins, they were hunted for them and hunted to extinction. And so there were beavers in Wales. That's why there's a Welsh word for it. I never keep it light. You know me. But Avanc or Avanc is also a mythical beast. of Welsh folklore.
That explains the label.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you look at the label, it doesn't actually look like a beaver, or it kind of looks like a beaver, but in the same way, like those medieval drawings of, say, like an elephant or a rhinoceros by someone who had never actually seen an elephant or a rhinoceros before, and they get it like swing and a miss kind of thing. I think what they've done with this label is it looks like it's based more on the myth of Avanc rather than an actual beaver. So do you know the myth of Avanc?
I was hoping you were going to tell us. Yeah. Not off the top of my head, no.
I'd be like, I hoped you did, because I don't know. Of course I do.
That'd be a short podcast.
I know, right? Don't you regret inviting me to be in the
So we've got a historian, but she doesn't
Tell
know
me
much
about
about
the
history.
The number of podcasts I have been on where I've talked about beavers. Anyway, so Oravanc is this mythical creature. The story of Oravanc, it's more from like northwest Wales, so based around like the River Conwy and Bala way, so up that way towards like
Bala.
So these are myths coming from Snowdonia or Eryri. And so the Avanc is this massive beaver or beaver-like creature, like huge. In some accounts it's as big as like a couple of massive oxen, and sometimes it's as big as a house.
Is it like the Welsh version of like the Loch Ness?
No, because it's furry.
You don't know the Loch Ness Monster isn't furry.
Well, I don't think I think the Loch Ness Monster is more like serpenty or like dinosaur-y, and it stays in the water, whereas Oravanc is both in the water and comes out of the water, which is why it's terrifying.
Versatile.
It's a very versatile monster. And the thing's massive. And in some accounts, it has the head of a beaver, but with these like fierce glowing red eyes. And in other versions of the story, it's got the head of like a crocodile or an alligator. Do you know how to tell the difference between a crocodile and an alligator?
Please tell me.
Well, one you see later, and the one you see in a little while.
God.
So Oravanc, the massive beaver monster. In some accounts, it has this like reptilian head, but also big glowing eyes. Mm-hmm. And it lives in the water, and its favorite food is the flesh of strapping young men. But he's easily appeased by the sultry voice of a beautiful young maiden. And so Avanc would stalk in water and wait till a young man would come down to the water's edge, and then it would lunge out and eat it. Mm-hmm. And this one community got fed up with Avanc, so they sent their finest young maiden down to the water's edge, and she sat there at dusk and started singing. She had a beautiful voice, and it lured Avanc out of the water, and it came up, and in the legend it says it rested its head in her lap, and by the sounds of it, that would probably crush her. But we're not here to be pedantic, and it's a myth, so we'll just roll with it.
Especially if he's eating a lot of people.
Yeah, right? Like
high protein.
Big
high protein diet.
Big beefy beaver. But anyway, so it worked. The Avanc came out and was lulled to sleep, and a bunch of the villagers then came out and with chains and a couple of oxen, and they quickly tied up Oravanc, and using the oxen dragged it over the mountains to another lake where it was like a catch and release thing, and Avanc's like, all right, this will do. And it stayed there and left the village alone. If you'd like to learn more about Oravanc and other Welsh folklore and ghost stories, I really recommend a book by Delyth Bader and Mark Norman. It's The Folklore of Wales. The book came out a couple of years ago, and it's mostly about ghosts, but like the thing about ghosts in Wales is they're not really the kind of spooky kind. They're more tied to myth and to beavers. Yeah, there's an entire chapter about beaver monsters.
I was joking, but no, I'll get in the book.
They're all tied to beavers. What a shit book that would be. I'm sorry.
There's like a beaver scientist somewhere sitting in the corner crying now listening to this. We're so sorry. In some versions of the story, the Avanc is just set free and haunts this other lake, but people don't really go there, so he's fine. Doesn't explain what Avanc eats, but again, myth, we don't worry about that. But in other stories, some of the men hauling their Avanc over the mountain actually died in the process. But either way, that's how the story of Avanc was resolved. But the moral of the story is stay away from the water, because a scary beaver monster might come out and get you.
It's funny enough, the Tales for Wales boys, the podcast.
Oh yeah, those lads.
Yeah. They did an episode on like Welsh folklore as well, and they mentioned Avanc. I cannot remember. It was slightly different though. and I can't remember how it went because I think I tend to listen to podcasts when I'm like getting ready in the morning, and I think Lena like was just running around. I'm like, okay, I'm not internalizing any of this, but it's really interesting that it is.
It's one of the more. I think it's one of the more well-known bits of folklore, and because it's folklore, there's so many different versions of it because it's originally an oral tradition. So
that is the inspiration for our Avank the wine.
The label on the wine, yeah. So that's
if you remember that we were talking about a bottle of wine
with Avank on it. I think it's. Yeah. I'm just providing colorful context.
You are, and we thank you for that. We salute you.
So this is a story of like the mythical Avank, but of course we've got this epic Avank, which is the wine, and which is from the Dell. And you had a chat with Lucy from the Dell about this recently, didn't you?
Yeah, so the Dell is a vineyard in Raglan, Monmouthshire, and Lucy's great, actually. I messaged her and I was like, hey, we're going to be doing like a little episode about your wine. Just as a side note, we need to go to the Dell. We need to go and visit. It's got like such interesting history, and there's such cool people.
So they do tours, don't they, at the Dell?
Yeah, they do tours, they do wine tours and tastings, and they do open weekends as well. I think it's the first weekend every month they have a food truck, like different kinds of food trucks. They had like cheese truck, and they've got pizzas and all sorts of stuff. And yeah, it's definitely worth a visit. So we are going to go. Definitely.
Yes, and I know also, because I saw them post about this on social medias last year. So if you're interested in this, definitely give them a follow. You can go and help them with the harvest as well. So they share whatever days they're going to be out harvesting the grapes. And then at the end of that all, they have like a big harvest feast as well that you're welcome to join if you helped harvest grapes. So I was going to do it last year, but I wasn't available.
We'll definitely do that. And when we post this episode on Instagram, we'll tag the Dell so people can follow them and
absolutely
find out what's coming up.
I was chatting to Lucy the other day from the Dell. Lucy from the Dell. I think that's going to be her official name.
Yeah, exactly. Like, can we Lucy put that to the tune of Jenny from the Block?
And I was like, hey, so we're doing this episode. Can you answer some questions for me? And like I said, we're going to go visit. We have to go and visit. We'll do a full episode, maybe even on site. That would be so much fun, wouldn't it? If we could do a tasting and a tour and find out everything about their history and everything behind the bottle. But for now, we're just going to drink their wine. And I've got some questions that Lucy answered. And I just sent her a WhatsApp, like, can you do this for me? And she messaged me back saying, yeah, that's fine, but like I'm half a bottle of Chardonnay down. Like, do you want it? Do you want it this evening or?
Yes, like, no. 100% yes.
I said, don't worry, I'll message you in the morning. But yeah, it's really fun actually. So we've got lots of German varieties in this bottle of wine, and one of the things that they tend to do when they have visits is they don't tell people about the German varieties or the hybrid varieties first. They talk about maybe the Pinot Noir, because they do grow Pinot Noir, and as Lucy calls it, it's called like the heartbreak grape, because yeah, I know, and I didn't know this actually. This is really interesting. So some harvest it could do really well, and other harvests it just does.
It's just not feeling
it's
it.
Just not having it.
Is it like a fussy grape or like a delicate one?
I was going to say, genuinely, in my WSET's, Wines and Spirits Education Trust studies, you've done your level 2, haven't you?
I have.
You have done your level 2. Sorry, just showing off there for a second.
Yeah. Sorry, Angela, what have you done?
A PhD.
A PhD.
Yeah, but you haven't done WSET level 2.
No, it's not a PhD in wine, although I did drink a lot of wine while doing the PhD.
It fueled your PhD.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But it was at crap university wine that I never want to drink again.
Pinot Noir is genuinely described as a fussy grape variety in the WSET Wines and Spirits Education Trust, because it doesn't like too much heat, and it prefers a cooler climate, but not that cold. And so Lucy was explaining that they actually have 2 different clones that they plant on their vineyard.
So is a clone a hybrid, or is that something different?
Right, so hybrid is 2 different species that have been crossed like on purpose to create something different. A clone is a grape that looks and behaves exactly like the original, except for maybe like a small change. So you can have Pinot Noir précoce, so précoce meaning earlier in French, and it just quite literally ripens a little earlier. So they have these 2 different clones, and I didn't know this, but one of them is better for red wines, and then one is better for sparkling wines. And the difference is that one ripens slightly earlier, like the Précoce, like I was just saying. So it has a longer growing period, and then they harvest it later. Whereas the one for the sparkling will have slightly higher acidity. And Lucy was trying to explain to me, and I don't like viticulture, like the wine itself. Yeah, great. The viticulture side of things, I'm like, meh. But the bunch formation is different as well. So they actually harvest the same grape effectively at different times.
I'm always blown away by things like that. I mean, that's the level of detail they go into when they're making wine, isn't it?
Exactly.
The bunch.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And just the way that it grows and the way that it behaves and all of these things. So they've got one Pinot Noir for sparkling wine and one Pinot Noir for red wine. And then as long as the weather behaves in Wales, then they potentially have a sparkling and a red.
So no problem there.
Yeah, exactly. But this is exactly why they didn't actually manage to produce an Avanc in 2024. So the one we're drinking now is actually 2022 vintage. Oh. So the first Avanc that they made was the 22, and then they made a 23. They ran out of the 23 because it became so popular. I ordered it, and Lucy was like, nah, it's gone. I'm so sorry. But listen, I found a case in the boot of my car of the 2022. So that's what we're drinking now.
Well, thank you, Lucy.
Yeah, cheers. And they've not managed. They're quite upset by it, obviously, because it's such a great wine and it's so popular among their customers, and I think it's great. But it's just because last year it was just terrible weather. Nobody produced much wine at all in Wales. It was yeah.
A lot of the varieties in Wales, the hybrids, the clones, they're German varieties, aren't they?
Yeah, German hybrids.
Didn't Judith tell us a little bit about the German varieties she grows?
And pronounce them all well.
So we've got a lot of old German varieties. We've got Müller-Thurgau, Huxelrebe, Körner, Regner, Ehrenfelser, Reichensteiner, Scheurebe, Ortega, and then a couple of things like Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, Auxerre, and Gewürztraminer.
So I've got quite a downer on German wine in general, really. And
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think we probably have a similar feeling about our history with it.
And I think it's probably down to the fact that my mother drank hock when I was a kid. Now, for anyone who's probably under about, 35, who doesn't really remember the 80s, 90s, they may not know what hock is. So tip for you, go into Asda or any supermarket, look at the bottom shelf of the wine aisle. It's about £3 or £4 for a litre of hock. And it is terrible. Sorry, ma'am, but it is awful. And that is why I don't tend to go for German wine. However, I have been proved wrong on that front these days, and obviously we use a lot of good German grapes in Wales.
Because like you, there's a lot of the German wines. Like when I think of German wine, I think of some of those. They're just a bit too sweet. They're just not nice. But I have a confession to make.
Go on.
Because we were talking about we'll talk about hock wines here. I thought that was an abbreviation, like an abbreviation.
Yeah, I wonder what it meant. Yeah.
Well, what I thought it meant isn't what it actually means, and we'll go into what it actually means. But I thought it was just short for Hochtaler.
What's Hochtaler?
Right? I know. It's a Canadian hock, but it was a Canadian white based on the German varieties, and I think they started making it in the 70s, and it was really popular in like the 70s and 80s. Apparently, I mean, I obviously wasn't drinking wine at that point, but I remember my friends' mums drinking it in the 90s. So it's like a Canadian homage.
Right.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So when I thought when we were saying hock, we're just that's because everything
talking about that wine.
Yeah, it's like instead of calling you Jamie, we say Jazza, right? We don't do that.
If you want to stay friends, maybe not.
Noted. But because everything's an abbreviation here, like everything's got a nickname. So I thought hock was just short for Hochtaler. It's not.
So what is hock short for then?
Well, hock is just short for the region in Germany, Hochheim. Back in the day, it was genuinely like a really decent wine.
Really?
Yeah, it was actually a really nice wine made predominantly with Riesling, so quite high quality, made from the region Hochheim. Now, when we say hock now, it actually comes from, I mean, it could come from anywhere along the Rhine River. So it's quite a vast space. But back in the day, it was, like I say, quality wine, Queen Victoria has something to do with this as well.
Didn't see that one come in, but go on.
So I think it's partly because of her that it's popular here, started to become popular here.
Yeah.
That I am speculating on a little bit, but there is a connection between Queen Victoria. I mean, I don't know if people, maybe not as much now, but like people would like whatever the royals were doing, everyone else wanted to do. That's why like white wedding dresses became white and mourning clothes became... Anyway, I'm going to cut that.
I've been listening to an audiobook about Henry Chips Channon, who was a Tory MP back at the beginning of the 20th century, and he was in with all the aristocracy, and he's always talking about people drinking hock. So I'm just thinking, really? Hock?
Right, so that does make sense then.
Real?
So it's probably because of Queen Victoria. And so in 1845, Victoria and Albert, so this is only about 5 years after they've married, they did a tour of Germany, which is, of course, where Albert's from, and, where Victoria's ancestors are from. The royal family is basically German cousins. And has been for hundreds of years. They're all cousins. We're good. So Victoria and Albert go on this tour of Germany, and one of the stops along the way is Hochheim.
Yeah.
And Victoria just took a liking to the wine and really, really liked it. And 9 years after that, on one of the vineyard owners built a monument to Queen Victoria. And I'm guessing they must have done that because she probably was quite good for the industry. So she falls in love with this wine and probably starts importing it a lot. And then all of, these MPs and whoever else, probably everyone in the House of Lords is like, oh, I really like this German Riesling. We really want to get our hands on a hock. So
interesting.
The monument still stands. I think they refurbished it a little while ago.
It's another thing we can blame the royal family for.
But this is the thing about, taste in 70s and 80s. People were into lighter styles, aromatic, slightly sweeter. It was easy as well to mass produce these wines. And so it would have been the wine that was produced in Germany at the time would have been quality wine. And then the wine that was then brought here wouldn't have been as high quality, which is fine. But I think because of that as well, it's just got this bad reputation. And even Lucy mentioned it. Actually, she mentioned her mum. What was she saying about her mum?
We like surprising people. I think some people, especially like my mum's generation, can be put off by German varietals, and that's mainly because a lot of cheap German wine was brought into the country that was like super sweet in the 80s. And so now, like, for example, my mum would say, I don't like a German wine.
And it's so true. I mean, my dad still drinks, I can't even pronounce it, but is it Liebfraumilch? He's, like I've run my business now for 5 years.
He's drinking that.
He still prefers bottom shelf. Hey, we don't judge.
No.
Everyone's got their preference.
You like what you like.
You like what you like.
Well,
and
to be
that's
clear,
fine.
my mother doesn't drink hock anymore. She's got much better tasting wine now.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Dad. What about you, Ange? Have you got a story to do with?
Do I
insulting your parents?
Do I ever? Do I ever?
Do you actually?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Go on.
So back in the day when my parents were first dating, one of the first dates my dad took my mum on was to the Calgary Tower, which, for anyone who doesn't know, this was when Calgary was becoming this like big oil town. So they're like, oh, let's build a tower and let's put a restaurant at the top. And it was one of those revolving restaurants, like super fancy. It still exists. It's actually a really nice restaurant. So my dad thought, I'll impress this young lady, take her to the Calgary Tower for dinner. And he looked at the wine list and he ordered a bottle of wine. He thought, I'll order I guess he just ordered the one that he recognized the name of. So he ordered a bottle of their finest Blue Nun.
Excellent.
And my mum has never been much of a drinker, and she's never been much of a wine drinker, but she knew enough, right?
Yeah.
And so the waiter brought the wine to the table and does what you do when you order a bottle of wine. Poured a little bit of it for my dad to taste. He sent it back.
Oh no, he didn't.
He sent back a bottle of Blue Nun.
Oh my God. I don't know what's worse, sending back a bottle of Blue Nun or a restaurant having Blue Nun on
I don't know.
This
would have been in the 70s, so I don't know what options there would have been. Like I don't know what wine culture was like on the prairies of Canada in like the late 70s, but there we go. But I mean, it certainly didn't bode well for the rest of their relationship.
that note, then let's try the wine.
So should we cut to Lucy, because she's got a really good description about the wine?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Aravank is an absolutely stunning wine, really aromatic. It's a blend of 3 varietals that we grow on our older site at Penacloud. So it's got Reichensteiner, Schomburger and Phoenix. And I always say to people, if you can remember that after a glass of wine, then hats off to you.
So what do you two think?
So it's an aromatic white wine. It's supposed to be aromatic. Remember, it's got these German varieties that naturally have these aromas. It's got a small amount of CO2 in it as well.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What do you mean by aromatic?
Like quite perfumed, quite strong aromas. Because you have some white wines, for example, that they might have certain floral aromas or fruit aromas, but they're not as intense.
Right.
So there are grape varieties that are considered aromatic.
Okay.
And the German ones are definitely always aromatic. So
like perfumey sort of smell.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So you've got quite a perfumed, which I don't want that to put people off, because it does sound like you're like, oh, I'm going to drink something that's a bit gross.
Well, because I tend to, I'm pretty basic with my white wines because I'm more of a red wine drinker. So I like the white wines that are really like clean and crisp and don't taste like much. But I like this. I actually really, really like this. So like, based on how you would describe it and how like Lucy's described it, I wouldn't necessarily choose this wine. But I actually really like this wine.
Yeah, it's a really great, fresh. It is aromatic. It's got a nice little spritz to it, like a little bit of white peach, a little bit of elderflower. Elderflower is quite a common aromatic note that you get in a lot of Welsh wines.
That's quite nice because that is like one of the flavors of the countryside.
It's a green, it's a slightly green note that you get from a slightly cooler climate. A little bit of passion fruit. I get some citrus, pear, cut grass.
Definitely get the grass.
I know it sounds really wanky. As soon as you get to like cut grass, not just grass.
Yeah, but
cut
no,
grass.
but that's really evocative. It smells like you've just mowed the lawn and you're walking past a park where they've been out working on it. It does sound pretentious,
but it also makes sense.
But once you try it, you're like, oh, it does. If you read it before you tried it, you're like, oh, this person is really pretentious. And then when you try the wine, you're like, oh, that actually makes complete sense. What do you guys think?
Well, I'm not. I'm a bit like you, actually, Ange. I'm a red wine drinker mostly, and if I go for a white, I like something with a bit of oomph to it, a bit of body, and that has it. I mean, that has plenty going on, doesn't it? I mean, there's a lot of, as you say, aromatic.
I think it's actually quite rare that there's a white that we both like.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay, so the last episode we talked a lot about lobster and
we did.
and Solaris.
Yeah.
So would this go well on your Wednesday night lobster session, or
no? I reckon this is more for like the fresh kind of flavors, so like more like salads, still like a little bit of seafood, but not lobster or crab. Come on, no, this is
I mean, my hot take is everything goes with lobster.
I mean, everything can go with lobster. Maybe a bit of smoked salmon, actually. Like it's got that nice acidity that would cut through it, especially if it's got dill. I'm thinking herbs. I'm thinking green herbs. Does that make sense?
And for those who can't see what we're doing right now, Angela was trying really hard to interrupt you then, but she had a mouthful of wine.
I wasn't trying to interrupt. I was just enthusiastically agreeing with a mouthful of wine.
Angela, what's your biggest takeaway then from today? What have you learnt?
That there's a pretty big connection between German wine and Welsh wine, although it's still completely different.
Yeah.
Like place does make a difference.
Absolutely. What about you, Jamie?
Apart from your dad still drinking Leafer milk, apart from that, I think the stuff about hybrid grapes is really interesting, and how they've kind of bred them to survive the climate. And like Angela, I think that German wine reputation is pretty poor amongst people probably around our age and older, and actually not true. And
it's not your parents. It's not your parents' white wine.
Yeah.
Far from it. Because it's good.
Yeah, exactly. Oh well, I'm glad you've learned something.
Every day's a school day here at Uncorked.
Thanks, Sara.
That's us done today then. Hope you enjoyed it, and please do follow us and share our content on Instagram. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and tell your friends. Iechyd da.
Iechyd da.